Welcome back everyone for the last part of the rules tutorial. Now let's talk about the enemy turn. I prepared for you a random situation which could have happened like this after the character turn. And now we see how the enemies act. So first part of the enemy turn, we are still in round 1. Enemy turn is the second part of round 1. First is character turn. And the first part of the enemy turn is the spawn phase. During the spawn phase, we refer to the reinforcements table. The reinforcements table is printed in every encounter book and says how many and which kind of enemies will spawn during the reinforcement, during the spawn phase. So we've got auto reinforcements. Auto reinforcements are those reinforcements which automatically spawn every round. So we've got 2 times a biomutant, 2 times a security droid. Let's look for our spawn pool. And let's place a few of those here. Excuse me. So we take 2 biomutants for auto reinforcements, as well as 2 security droids. Though those 4 enemies will spawn automatically during the enemy spawn phase. Let's place them close to the board, somewhere here. And then we refer to the reinforcements table again, and we see there's something written which is called extra reinforcements. And those reinforcements we are buying via reinforcement points. Reinforcement points are this currency over here. We've got 12 of them, can never be more than 12 in the reinforcement pool. And reinforcement points get placed at 2 occasions. The first one is whenever a character excuse me, puts down his last dice on the inactive bar. So his 5th dice, if he's got 5 dice, if he should for any reason have more dice than a 5, as soon as he puts the last one on the inactive bar, one reinforcement token goes from outside of the reinforcement pool to inside the reinforcement pool. And the second one is whenever enemies, even if controlled by Korra, whenever enemies roll a 1, they don't get any stress, only characters get stress. But the reinforcement area, the reinforcement pool, we get added 1 reinforcement point. Okay, this is how it works. So normally there are a few reinforcement points in this pool in every enemy turn, after every enemy turn and after every character turn. So let's pretend in the first character activation, we 3 of them used all 5 dice and we placed 3 reinforcement points here. The extra reinforcements are we can buy 1 biomutant, level 1, for 2 reinforcement points. So let's see how many we can buy. We have 3 reinforcement points here. Let's take 2 off from the reinforcement pool and place 1 additional biomutant level 1 close to the encounter map. This will also be spawned during the next step. Now we've got 1 reinforcement point left. It's not 2 reinforcement points. We need two reinforcement points to buy another biomutant. But this one doesn't get, he doesn't stay here. He gets laid off the board. And the starting player, that player who was the first to act in the character turn, let's pretend in our character turn it's been Valid. This character gets as many stress as reinforcement points have to be taken off from the reinforcement pool. So in this case, 1 stress for Valid, because we took 1 reinforcement point off from the reinforcement pool. Okay. Now we've got a few of those enemies to spawn, and we've got a spawn die, and we have got spawn spaces to spawn. So here in this space, we've got a 1, 2, and 3 printed on the left upper corner of the hex, and those are our spawn points. Whenever I roll with my d6 during this spawn phase, a 1, 2, or 3, the enemy for which I'm rolling is placed there. You've got more spawn points here, a 5, a 6, and a 4. So statistically, 50% of the enemies which we will spawn in this 1, 2, 3 space. Let's see whether we are right or not. Let's start with the biomutants. Yes, this is totally statistically correct. Let's see the second one, number 2, to the 5. Okay, it spawns down here. Number 6 goes to the 2 space, totally normal. And then we have a number 1, the security droid, as well to this one. And last spawn dice for number 3 goes to number 6. So this is a really statistically quite normal outcome. Now we spawned all the enemies. So after the spawn phase is now ended. Now starts the enemy action phase. And in this phase, we look at the enemy cards. At the beginning of the encounter, we were supposed to form the enemy initiative by placing the cards above each other. I mean, as long as the Biomutant is at a higher position than the security droid, the Biomutants act first, second act the security droids. In some encounters, you can have 4 to 5 or even 6 different kinds of enemies, and at the beginning of the encounter, the players decide how the enemy initiative will be. In the first encounter, it's not so important, but in later encounters, it can be quite a strategic decision-making process. So in this example, the Biomutants would act first because their enemy card is lying above the security droid card. There's one exception. Whenever you've got a boss enemy, the Xenocase later or the Artemisia boss, the bosses always act before standard enemies, standard or special enemies. So bosses go always first, and then we resolve the enemy initiative by how the cards are placed. So Biomutants go first. And then the Biomutants activate by standee number. So we have here standee 1, 2, 3, and 6. So this would be the order in which they activated. It's very easy to activate those guys. They have a profile written on their enemy card. The profile is this first red bar, and this bar indicates how they will act. The first icon says those guys are close combat enemies. The fist is the close combat attack icon. So close combatists always try to move as close to the enemy to the character they are attacking as possible, preferably range 0. So standing on the same space as the character would be their target. The next icon indicates how far they can move. So Biomutants have movement of 4, so they can go up to 4 spaces far. And if then they are in range 0 or in range A1. A1 is the range which also includes the diagonally adjacent spaces. It's called adjacent 1. Yeah, this is a only occurrence in which we are not only taking orthogonal spaces into account. A ranges are also diagonally adjacent. As if he has a character in A1, he attacks this character with 3 dice. So this is his attack value. Okay, let's see who he chooses. So we've got the Biomutant level 1 here. And now during the activation step, we have at first target selection. To select a target, the Biomutant is counting an imaginary movement to the closest character. So we see Ada only is 1 space away. Yeah, he would just have to move 1 space to get into range 0, which is preferably because he's a close combatant. And Ashitaka is 1, 2 spaces away. So Ada would be the preferred target. Let's just pretend Ashitaka and Ada are at the same distance and the same range from this Biomutant number 1. Then we would have an equation like the same range for both characters. And the next condition which needs to be met is which character has the most damage. So we see here Ada has 1 damage. Ashitaka has 0 damage. So Ada would be the preferred target for the Biomutant number 1 because he always tries to attack the weakest character. But let's just pretend Ashitaka would have 1 as well. In this situation, as well, Ada as Ashitaka have 1 damage, and the next condition needs to be met. And the next condition to choose a target for the enemy is which character has the lowest defense value against his kind of attack. The Biomutant is a close combat attacker, so we look at the close combat defense value for Ashitaka. It's this value. Yeah, he's got a defense value against close combat, shooting, nanoshock, hacking attacks. And his defense value is a 6. So the Biomutant will later on roll on this red D8, a 6 or higher to hit Ashitaka. And the defense value for Ada against close combat attacks is 5. So Ada has a worse defense value against close combat attacks than the Biomutant. So the Biomutant would again choose Ada. Okay, there is no way out. Ada always gets chosen as a target. But let's just assume that Ashitaka... Sorry, you have skill tokens for this. I will just use those. Let's just pretend Ashitaka did do provoke. And now you see the interaction of the skill. I have to show you. If Ashitaka would have activated provoke during his character turn, he would get these 3 skill markers. Yeah, those are normally depicted round tokens. And he could now, when this enemy is in his target selection step, spend one of his tokens, just give it away, and say, no, you're not attacking Ada, you're attacking me. And now the Biomutant would come over to Ashitaka. Okay, this is the target selection step, and this is the moment in which you activate provoke. I mean, you activated the skill during the character turn, but now you spend the skill tokens which you got for activating the skill. Okay, as soon as the Biomutant now goes to Ashitaka, he is attacking him. And let's see how he attacks. In the attack profile, it's written this is a close combatant with movement of 4. He has a range of A1 and he has a combat value of 3. So the Biomutant would get 3 attack dice, combat dice, and would roll those. 1, 1, 3. Okay. This would say that now we would put 1, 2 reinforcement points to the reinforcement pool. Okay, because the enemy rolled a 1 during his activation. But let's just pretend we rolled a 6 and a 7. Okay. His Ashitaka's defense value against close combat attacks is 6. But because of this blue little shield right to the defense values, I show you with an arrow, these ones. No? Those are armor icons, and those icons mean that whenever Ashitaka gets attacked by close combat attacks, shooting attacks, nanoshock attacks, or hacking attacks, he's got an armor of 1, and this just means the first hit he would take gets nullified. This is not hitting him anymore because he's got 1 armor, and he only needs to take the second one and gets 1 damage. So 2 hits, 1 damage. If we would have rolled 3 hits, Ashitaka would get 2 damage. All clear so far? So this is how enemy activate. Close combatants always try to reach range 0. Shooting enemies like those here try to get in maximum range. So let's just pretend all the Biomutants did already activate, and now it's the turn for the security droids. We would have to activate this one. He would again choose between Ada and Ashitaka, and now Ashitaka has more damage, so the second condition meets, and Ashitaka will automatically be hit again. This droid has a movement of 4, a range of 3, and a combat value of 4. So this droid tries to get into a position in which he has a maximum range to Ashitaka, but can still hit him. So he wants to be 3 spaces away from him. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be a good position for him because he's got 1, 2, 3 range. Ashitaka is still in his range, but he's got in a maximum distance of Ashitaka. And he's got line of sight because see, from this corner to this corner, as we measured before, you have a clear line of sight. So the robot would roll 4 dice against the defense value against shooting attacks of Ashitaka of 6. He's got a 2, 3, and 7. Normally he would not hit, but the security droid has a special ability. And the special ability is the text on the left side. This one. And this means re-roll all 2 and 3 results during his attack once. So this is quite nice. He's very good at shooting, so we can re-roll this one and re-roll that one, and nothing. Okay, but if I would have rolled a 6 and you know the game, yeah? Now he would take 2 hits. And so on. The special ability for the Biomutant, by the way, is if you leave a square that is also occupied by 1 or more mutants, they each get a free attack action against you. So they are giving you 1 attack with 3 dice whenever you leave a space on which already a mutant is situated. Okay. And after we've done that, like all the enemies got spawned and all the enemies did activate, we would go to round 2. Whenever we move the round marker, we get the amount of reinforcement points which are printed beneath the round. So in this case, as long as it's green, we get 1 reinforcement token placed here. And as soon as we met the yellow conditions, we get 2 for each new round. You get the hang of it, yeah. And as soon as we in the red part, we get 3. And then we would start the status phase. We reset our stress level. We roll our dice. We make clear who is the first player. Everything is written down here on the reference card, and you start a new round. So this is enemy activation. Thank you very much for your interest. And the next and last video which I will do is an example turn of how an example round of how this game plays. So stay tuned.